we're going to move on now to these draft scenarios. I had one in mind I wanted to start with, and then Tyler tweeted out today the idea of the Chargers potentially taking Najee Harris at 13. So we're going to start with the idea of the Chargers taking a running back here. Tyler, I'll have you start with maybe making the argument for drafting Najee Harris and maybe kind of your thought process of how you got to that point. So kick us off there with Najee Harris at 13.
Yeah, I was getting blackout drunk. No, Najee Harris at 13. Look, I think I keep coming back to this. I think this is the scenario that the BPA crowd is forgetting. Like for some reason, it just stops at corner and wide receiver, but never goes to running back. You could see a world where Harris is the best player available, depending on who goes in front of the Chargers, of course. Because if the Chargers really want an offensive weapon and they're choosing between Bateman and Harris or ETN and Harris or like Elijah Moore and Harris is probably the better weapon. Let's see what else. Telesco has traded up for a running back before, so that is possible. You can't trust the running backs behind Eckler. Frankly, you can't trust Eckler as it is. They will likely run a lot of play action this year. They're going to use that two backs, that 1A to 1B, like a Murray Kamara sort of deal. And for those who say like, oh, that's a redundant pick because they have Eckler. I'm pretty sure Waddle's kind of a redundant pick, at least for this year, because they have two of the highest paid receivers in the league on the team. So while I'm not advocating for this. This is part of a worst case scenario sort of thing. There are reasons I could see this happening.
We had this conversation a while back about Javonte Williams in the second round. Yeah. And, Tyler and I don't know how Alex feels about Javonte Williams, but Tyler and I really, really like Javonte Williams. And I tried so hard to make him my RB1 over Najee Harris, and I just couldn't. Najee Harris is so damn good. And you talk about what the NFL running back kind of being a dying breed and not being very valuable. But Najee Harris is a true, 3-down back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, run routes, be effective in the screen game. He can run outside zone. He can run power runs. He might be, one of the best running back prospects that we've seen in a long time. And he's a top 15 player for me. And I've been a very strong advocate against the running back position for the last few years. So I really like Najee Harris. Obviously, I would hate this pick, but, I would understand, why someone would say that that's the best player available. Because if you're looking at a board, without Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, Rashawn Slater, and maybe the receivers, depending on how you feel about them, I think that is kind of something that people have not talked about Najee Harris being the best player on the board. So again, not advocating for this. I'm sure I probably just talked a couple people into that, but please do not take a running back at 13. That would be an atrocious use of team resources.
Yeah, not only would I hate this, I would hate this more than if they picked Jalen Waddle, and I would probably hate this more than if they picked, OT7. The thing with running back, and you mentioned the Melvin Gordon trade in 2015, that was kind of a different NFL. It's weird to think about it, Zeke getting picked number 4 the year after that, and then getting that contract, we've just gotten to a point rather quickly where we're just at full running backs don't matter. That's kind of the overused analytical thing. But I just don't know if you're taking a running back in the first round, I can understand it if you're the Steelers and you really have a hole there, or maybe the Chargers in 2015, where they really had no one because, Ryan Matthews was pretty much done. And so they really had no one in the backfield. So in that case, maybe I can understand it. But I mean, they do have Austin Eckler and they do have some decent running backs behind him. I don't see the analytic or Tom Telesco, who's become, I think, more increasingly analytical, or not just him, but also the league as a whole. Right. Mm-hmm. I just don't think the league is dumb enough. Well, some general managers. I don't think the league is dumb enough to take running backs that high anymore at that point. I mean, I think some team will take Najee Harris within the top 25 because he's Najee Harris and he's really good. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the team that takes him is going to, have an overwhelming amount of needs at the other positions like the Chargers do. So I don't know. The only way I could see that really coming to fruition is if you create some nightmare scenario where only 3 quarterbacks go in the top 10 and then Waddle, Surtain, Darrisaw, Horn somehow are all gone. Like, I don't know. I really feel like that's kind of the only case. And in that case, I feel like the Chargers might trade down anyway. So in that nightmare kind of scenario.
Yeah, that's definitely a scenario that I am hoping to avoid. I'm glad you mentioned the Steelers because, you know, I was listening to the Locked On Draft podcast with Trevor Sikkema and Benjamin Solak, which if you're not listening to that podcast, you absolutely should. I think those two gentlemen are fantastic at what they do. And they've been doing this guest mock draft series, and they get beat writers from each team on their podcast. And this guy from the Steelers was saying that, no, like Najee Harris makes a lot of sense. It checks a lot of boxes. Like, I think that for the Steelers, at least, not for the Chargers. And I just I can't wrap my head around taking a running back in the first round, even if it's Najee Harris, especially for a team, you know, like the Steelers are potentially losing their left tackle. They could still bring Villanueva back, but they lost their longtime center. They lost Bud Dupree. They lost their starting cornerback. They have all these needs at huge premium positions, and they're going to take a running back. Like, it's just kind of assumed that they're taking a running back. And I'm like, I don't understand that at all, man. Like, take Creed Humphrey and then get a second-round running back, and you're probably better off. But it is kind of weird how the running back position has so drastically and so rapidly become just like a non-factor in terms of, you know, first-round draft capital these days.
Yeah, I mean, the running back thing is just, it's weird to me if you're considering taking a running back in the first round just because all the talent is at the top of the draft and you're going to have some good running backs available in the second or third round anyway, right? I mean, I know the Steelers kind of struggled with like James Conner for a while and you know, whatever was in their backfield, but that was also because, I mean, they didn't really have a good run game around them. Like, I mean, their run game the last couple of years has been putrid, even though, I mean, until this year, Roethlisberger was pretty good, throwing for 5,000 yards in some seasons. Like, they just didn't open up the run game because I think largely because of their scheme as opposed to the talent that they had. So it's like, you know, would Najee Harris make it better? Sure. But like, you could also do a lot of other things than spend a first round pick on a running back to make that whole situation better. So,
Tyler, any other thoughts about this scenario here?
I feel like all we can do is talk about not taking Alabama players at 13 this year.